Recently, I've seen a few videos about whether the Helldivers could survive against aliens from other games. As a fan of this format, one thing I haven't seen is a video covering one of my favorite alien factions, the Covenant from Halo. Now, for those of you that don't know the Halo lore, the Covenant is an alliance of several alien species united under a fanatical theocracy that's bent on destroying humanity because their existence invalidates the Covenant's whole religion. And if you ask me, that fits in perfectly with what Liberty's finest are already fighting on a daily basis. In addition to having a military to match that of Super Earth's, it's made up of a bunch of different races that all serve their own role. Need an endless supply of cannon fodder? Take a look at the grunts. What about your commanders and specialized infantry? Here are the elites. Bullet sponges with anti-armor capabilities? Hunters. You want space gorillas? We'll get into the details in just a minute, but remember that numbers and comparisons are very hard to come by, and whatever I say has nearly zero backing by logic or reason, and my words are worth less than requisition chips after playing Helldivers 2 for more than 30 minutes. I'll do my best not to make my favoritism too obvious, but I do think that Halo is one of the best pieces of media ever, and I will die on that hill. That's also why I want to hear your thoughts. By all means, point out something you think I got wrong. What makes this scenario so interesting is how its outcome can be debated and speculated on. To begin, we should take a strategic view of what a Covenant invasion might look like. We're never given exact numbers, but it seems that at the height of their strength, the Covenant had several hundred fleets with about 100 ships per fleet, so total numbers could range from tens to hundreds of thousands of ships. It's worth noting that only a few thousand ships ever took part in the Human Covenant War, since the rest were dedicated to defending the Covenant's territory. As for the number of soldiers the Covenant might have, that number is even more obscure, but it's safe to assume that they had tens if not hundreds of billions across their whole empire, which makes for a large pool of manpower. Alien power? Looking at Super Earth, they have even less to go off of, so we'll just look at in-game numbers. Helldivers 2 had 500,000 concurrent players at its peak, and sold over 8 million copies total, and with each player getting their own ship, and each of those ships holding about 50 frozen Helldivers in reserve at any moment, that gives us anywhere from 25 million to 400 million Helldivers. And that's not even counting the rest of Super Earth's military. So, despite the Covenant's clear advantage on the ground, Super Earth's ship count proves that they could destroy the Covenant's navy before their forces could even make landfall, right? Not so fast. This is the part where my bias comes in. The Covenant has a few things over Super Earth's navy. For one, a super destroyer is about 170 meters long, while one of the most common Covenant battlecruisers is 1.7 kilometers long. Another huge Covey advantage is energy shielding. In Halo, the main reason Covenant ships were so formidable was because humanity had no way to get around their energy shields. Not even their nukes were effective. The only weapons super destroyers have that might break through energy shields is the ship's Atlas cannon, which provides the orbital strike stratagems. But until the shields are down, all the other weapons on board would be pretty much useless. It's worth noting that Super Earth fields a Liberty-class cruiser that's larger and more heavily armed than super destroyers, but their quantity is, we don't know. During the Human Covenant War in the Halo universe, the UNSC managed to destroy one Covenant ship for every 3 of their own, and that was on a good day. With plasma-based beams, torpedoes, and turrets, and each battlecruiser containing dozens of space fighters and boarding craft, combined with the smaller size and firepower of super destroyers, we can assume that it would take about a dozen Super Earth ships to take down a typical Covenant ship. So unless Super Earth could mobilize pretty much every ship at their disposal, they'd be in big trouble for most space battles. The planet-side conflicts would be much more interesting. I'd be remiss not to refer to the Illuminate when speculating on how Helldivers would do against the Covenant, as the Illuminate frequently utilized energy shields and other similar tech to that of the Covenant. I personally can't speak on how it was to fight the Illuminate, but apparently it was pretty bad. The Covenant likes to avoid ground engagements, preferring to glass planets entirely, but for the sake of our scenario, let's say the Covenant avoids glassing for strategic purposes? Seriously, who wants to control this planet during a galactic war? It rains flaming rocks like every 5 minutes. Usually, Helldivers enjoy complete air and space superiority and can call down stratagems at will. But I think the Covenant will challenge this standard even more than automatons do with their jammers and anti-air weapons. The Helldivers, would still be able to deploy since they use Hellpods, but they'd likely experience some casualties on the way down. The same goes for their resupply and support weapon Hellpods, with not everything making it down to our glorious freedom fighters. Covenant AA assets would also target Eagle bombers and Pelican shuttles. Now it's time to talk about the types of Covenant troops Helldivers would likely face on the ground. We'll start at the bottom with the Grunts. Since they canonically breed at uncontrollable levels, they make perfect cannon fodder for the Covenant. They typically come with a plasma pistol or a needler, which poses extra threat to an unshielded Helldiver, but certain Grunts can be seen operating vehicles or using powerful fuel rod guns, similar to automaton foot soldiers. They also come armed with sticky plasma grenades, which they are notorious for throwing at any opportunity. They're easily startled, fleeing when ambushed or when their leader is killed, or they just try even harder to blow you up. Alongside Grunts come the Jackals. They carry energy shields that make them harder to hit from the front, but they're vulnerable to precise shooting or explosives. Occasionally, Jackals ditch their shield to serve as snipers, something that Helldivers typically don't fight. And considering that those snipers can kill a Spartan in just a few hits, they would have a field day with Helldivers. Better get that shield pack. Next are the Elites, which are really the backbone of the Covenant infantry. They carry plasma weapons stronger than those used by Grunts or Jackals, as well as plasma grenades and energy shields built into their armor. Additionally, there are many specialized types of Elites, using jump packs, cloaking devices, armor lock that makes them impervious to damage. You get the idea. The highest ranking Elites also carry an energy sword, which they can use to devastating effect in close combat. They're skilled at dodging grenades and incoming fire, and they'd definitely be smart enough to try and avoid any offensive stratagems. They would also react to how the Helldivers fought, getting closer if they tried using explosives or stratagems, flanking if they get pinned down by the rest of their squad, retreating if the fight isn't going their way. They most often serve as squad leaders for the Covenant, leading Grunts and Jackals into battle. Despite all their strengths, they would be vulnerable to energy weapons, since all it takes to kill them is a headshot when their shields are down. Now let's look at our space gorillas. Brutes serve a similar role as Elites, and in Halo lore eventually replaced them altogether within the Covenant due to internal conflict. They're more aggressive and reckless than Elites, with weaponry to match. Spikers firing super hot metal shards, a belt-fed grenade launcher, both of which have huge blades on them. Brutes typically don't come equipped with energy shields, but have durable armor to match, and sometimes come with deployable shields, EMPs, and other equipment. When their armor is broken, they have a chance of going into a berserk state, dropping their weapon and charging into melee. The highest ranking brutes carry gravity hammers, and with the current state of ragdolling in the game, they would send Helldivers into orbit. In case you aren't sick of bugs yet, let's look at a less common enemy. Drones are agile flyers that come in huge swarms wielding plasma pistols. For reference, imagine giving Shriekers laser guns and doubling their numbers, and you have the idea. In wide open areas, they could terrorize Helldivers, but they'd likely come with nests that could be destroyed to stop them from appearing. The real heavy hitters of the Covenant infantry are the Hunters, which serve as armored shock troops, coming with armor plating, a plasma cannon on one arm, and a huge shield on the other. They also come in bonded pairs, so if one hunter goes down, the other flies into a rage, making them even harder to kill. While they're much less common than the other infantry types, they're only vulnerable to explosives or precision shots to the gaps in their armor, which only makes them that much more formidable. The final Covenant species plays more of a support role. Engineers are a race that look familiar. They're incredibly intelligent and have an obsession with technology, and they can understand pretty much any device by looking at it for just a few seconds. They're completely unbothered by combat and barely distinguish between ally and enemy, so pretty much all they do is manufacture and repair the Covenant's vehicles. Occasionally, you'll see them equipped with devices that provide energy shields to any nearby Covenant units, and they're almost always rigged with explosives to keep them from being captured. Now, if there's one thing the Covenant loves more than its infantry, it's their vehicles, and I guarantee you will see so many during a ground invasion. Starting off with the Ghost, a hovering scout vehicle that comes equipped with rapid-fire twin plasma cannons. They are both quick and agile, and fare well in any terrain due to their ability to hover. There's also the Revenant, which serves a similar role as the Ghost with a small plasma mortar and a passenger seat. They're usually piloted by Grunts, but can also be used by Brutes and Elites. Light maneuverable vehicles are something Helldivers don't usually fight, but their drivers are exposed to damage and explosives make quick work of both as well. Next is the Wraith. It serves as the main battle tank for the Covenant. It comes armed with a large plasma mortar and a turreted gunner seat. At longer ranges, it lobs surprisingly accurate indirect fire with its mortar, and in close combat it often tries to ram infantry and even other vehicles. The Wraith's Achilles heel is that its power source is exposed from behind, which can be damaged by pretty much everything. Looking to the skies, we have Banshees. They provide ground support to Covenant troops, coming equipped with the same plasma guns as the Ghost, as well as an additional explosive plasma cannon. Most support weapons would make quick work of Banshees due to their light armor, but they can prove deadly if they catch you out in the open. In addition to Banshees, we have the Covenant's dropships, the Phantom and the Spirit. They both quickly deploy troops much like automaton dropships and come armed with concussive plasma cannons. The Phantom also features a small turret on either side, and along with its troops often drops ghosts or wraiths into battle. Finally, we have the Scarab. It looks like a mechanized Bile Titan, with a powerful beam weapon on the front and a large plasma cannon on top. Only the heavier offensive stratagems or precise shots to its core could bring it down. With all of this put together, you get a well-rounded and dangerous fighting force that could challenge any diver, even with the full support of their super destroyer. Helldivers would find high armor penetration indispensable, as well as accurate, high-damage weapons to target the stronger infantry fielded by the Covenant. And quite honestly, I think they have the right tools for the job. Rifles and machine guns would rip through swaths of infantry, the railgun, autocannon, and rocket launcher variants would excel at targeting vehicles, and energy weapons would make short work of shielded units. Most offensive stratagems would work well, minus those lacking explosive power, especially against the stronger vehicles. Also, if you think exosuits wouldn't work well, take a look at Halo's Mantis. Most turret stratagems might fall short, since Covenant forces would likely be smart enough to destroy or avoid them altogether. Overall, I think a Covenant invasion of Super-Earth would actually be surprisingly difficult for both sides, with the Covenant having to deal with being outnumbered in nearly every space battle, and the arsenal of the Helldivers on the ground, with Super-Earth having to work around the firepower and durability of Covenant ships, as well as the Helldivers' contested air superiority on the ground while facing a wide range of enemy types. This is the part where you all tell me what you think. Do you agree with my assumption that both factions would encounter a stalemate? Do you think things would go completely differently? Do you hate me for even bringing this topic up? No matter what your opinion is, let me know. And if this video is received well, who knows? There are a few more alien species in the Halo universe, after all. I know this video is a departure from my previous content, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. But to all those that came for one thing and got the other, don't worry, because if I've covered something once, I'm not against revisiting it any number of times. I'll have more stuff coming soon, and it may be completely different than what I'm covering today, but I think you'll still enjoy it regardless. Till next time. Which I promise won't be a million years from now. Vintage Story got a lore.